can't say that I expected that I would get ever this far. It is my 50th Platinum trophy, and a milestone like this definitely deserves a special game. And I have been lurking around in a few different Platinum hunting servers on Discord, so I posed a simple question in all of those servers. Which game should I Platinum next? Of course they jumped into this opportunity and suggested some ridiculous Platinum trophies. Fortnite and the finals, which both of these games take about 900 hours to Platinum, and yeah, both of these games are really grindy and difficult. Of course, Crypt of the Necrodancer was suggested as well, which is agreed upon in the whole Platinum hunting community to be the hardest Platinum trophy to obtain. What's the reason for that? Well, there are only like 12 people who have this Platinum trophy, and it also takes about 900 hours to Platinum this game. And to that I said, sure, if I reach 1 million subscribers, I will do this game for sure. And I'm not joking, I actually bought this game. With a bit of more of back and forth, I wanted some kind of challenge, but you know, not a super grindy one. But on one of the servers, someone had a great idea. I should pick a few games and they will just vote for it. So these are the games I picked: Blasphemous, The Legend of Heroes, Tales into Reverie, Salt and Sacrifice, Dark Souls 1, Lost Dark Souls 3 Trophy Cleanup Video, and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Yeah, this one wasn't even close. Of course they picked the hardest From Software game so far, which is Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. To be fair, this is definitely a Platinum trophy that I need to obtain if I want to be claimed as the king of all Platinum hunters. But I don't think I will be able to call myself that until I obtain the Platinum trophy for Crypt of the Necrodancer. As you see, I did play this game a bit 5 years ago, and I obtained 5 trophies, which are pretty much the trophies that you obtain early on the game for beating the first boss, buying some items, and I don't even really remember what the rest of them are. Not that this really matters too much, because it has been, as I said, 5 years since I played the game, so I will have to start a new game anyway. And that has definitely been a good decision, because even after starting the new game, the first enemy has killed me. I know for a lot a challenge like this seems a bit terrifying, but the game has a 10% completion rate, so I wasn't really worried at this point. Even if I had a clumsy start, after getting used to the sneaking mechanics and the combat mechanics a bit, I was able to reach the end of this tutorial area and get my ass kicked by the first boss of the game. I mean, you can technically win this fight, but I didn't have the skill set to do that. If you play the game, you know the story at this point. You lose your arm and you wake up to a stranger, which starts your adventure.
It's not your fate, just yet. My name is Kyobu Masataka Oniwa! As I breathe, you will not pass the castle's gate!
Unlike in Dark Souls and Bloodborne, I guess, in this game there aren't really any builds you can take, so you're stuck with the abilities and the ninja tools that you can find in the game to make the boss fights easier. So the first priority is to pick up as many of these ninja tools early on in the game. And the most important skill that you have to pick up is the Mekiri counter. I don't think you'll miss this skill anyway, because it's in the skill tree pretty early on, but I'm just going to point that out. The only way you are going to get stronger is by beating the mini bosses that drop prayer beads and the main bosses that pretty much guard the game from advancing the plot. After beating a boss, they drop a boss soul, I guess, and you can use this boss soul to upgrade your attack. It is also essential that you parry as much as you can, but the parrying system is pretty generous for the most part, so this may look difficult, but it actually isn't. So if you are unsure about parrying an enemy, you can just kinda spam the guard button and you will probably get it right. With that all said, I eventually reached the next boss, who was the first real roadblock I encountered in this game. It's actually a pretty well designed boss fight once you figure out how to fight him. So the gimmick of this fight is that he pretty much uses all of the enemy skills that you have encountered so far. So there are attacks that you will have to use the Sekiro counter, unblockable attacks that you will have to use to jump over him and attack him, and in phase 3 he'll use a new mechanic, which is the lightning mechanic, I guess. I wasn't able to pull this off on my first playthrough to counter this mechanic, I guess. But the way you do this is to jump up and use the attack button to hit it back. I'm sure there's a timing for this, but I could never figure this out. So for the most part I just dodged the lightning attacks whenever the enemies were using them. And there aren't really a lot of enemies that use this mechanic, so I think you can get away without mastering it. The other thing I didn't mention so far, which makes this game different from anything else that I played, is that you and the enemies have a posture gauge. Once this gauge fills up, you can instantly kill your enemy. So this is your main strategy when you are fighting the enemies, to fill this gauge up. The same rule doesn't apply to you. If the posture gauge fills up for Sekiro, you will get staggered, but you can still dodge the enemy attacks. If you get lucky, I guess. So if the enemy is using a combo finisher and you get staggered from filling up your posture gauge, you will be still able to dodge an attack and get back to the fight with a posture gauge that's not filled at all, if that makes sense. So in this way your character is more overpowered than the rest. And the other thing that I didn't point out, and I'm sure you saw during the gameplay, is that you can't revive during the fight. It's up to 3 times. Well, technically. So you see these red balls above your health bar? Once you die, they all get crossed out. So you can remove this by doing one of these finishing moves on the boss, and then you will be able to revive again. Which pretty much means you can revive once for each health bar the boss has, or each phase, if you want to call it that. We did fight Genichiro before in the tutorial area, and as I said, this took me a long time to master his moveset, how to avoid everything, but once I did, I was victorious and obtained my first actual trophy for beating this boss. So this is pretty much one of our main objectives, is to beat every boss of the game, since every boss has its unique trophy. But I'm sure all of this information is old news to all of those Sekiro pros who are watching this video. And as you see, the next boss I decided to fight was Lady Butterfly, who can be found at the end of the Hirata Estate dungeon. This is a special dungeon you can unlock at the Buddha statue, what you can find at the beginning of the game. You find the bell pretty early on in the game, one of the NPCs gives it to you, and as I said, once you get to the end of this dungeon, you get to face off against Lady Butterfly. The first phase of this fight isn't really too bad. You can get used to her moveset pretty fast, The only attack that I didn't know how to counter was when she was jumping down and trying to grab me. So I just dodged that one and got back to her and got in a few hits. In phase 2, she starts to spawn these illusions. There is an item that you can get to dispel these illusions, but if you decide to fight Lady Butterfly early on as I did, you won't really have access to these items, so that wasn't really an option for me. But these illusions that she spawns are relatively weak, so if you just stay out of their way and focus your attacks on Lady Butterfly, you can still deal with this boss fight relatively easily. To add one more point, you will do better at this boss fight the more hits you can land on Lady Butterfly. This way you can fill up her posture gauge relatively fast. And this can be a pretty quick boss fight once you learn how to fight her. But yeah, I definitely did struggle against her. I'm not going to say that this is a very easy boss fight or a very hard one, it's in the middle there somewhere. But it is time to return to the main plot. And it turns out that Genichiro is immortal, and so is the Divine Child. And Sekiro too, so I guess that's not really that rare. So the Divine Child sends you on a quest to retrieve the Mortal Blade, which is the only blade that can kill immortal beings. He sends you on a quest to obtain some other items too, which the first one of them is a flower that's deep inside the sunken cave. And of course, it is guarded by a boss, the Guardian Ape. To be fair, at this point this boss fight isn't too bad, because after Genichiro you should have mastered all the game mechanics. So the first phase of this fight shouldn't really cause any issue. You can be very aggressive against this boss and he'll just run away. Or you can stay far away and wait for him to throw poop at you and attack him whenever opportunity opens up. I of course chose the more aggressive strategy because it was just faster for me. And then phase 2 starts, and this is a completely different fight. After you behead the Guardian Ape, it picks up its head and it can actually use a new ability that can instantly kill you if you're not careful. At this point I don't think you can obtain any items that cancel this out, so your best bet is to try to avoid it. At the beginning I couldn't really tell when exactly he was doing this attack, and for me the best way to avoid it was to jump behind him when he was starting to use this attack and just keep jumping away, if that makes sense. All of the other attacks that he does can be parried, except for the one when he jumps up and lands back down, but you can just jump over that. Don't get me wrong, it takes a while to practice this fight, and I do recommend you to learn these bosses' fighting patterns because you'll have to fight him once again. So at the end this wasn't really a pointless endeavor for me, even if it took some time to learn this boss's full moveset. This boss isn't really worth too much to talk about in depth, because most of the monkeys you can just one-shot by sneaking up on them and stabbing them. There's one that's invisible, but you'll still be able to hear its footsteps and cut it down. There's also an NPC that gives a few tips how to fight these monkeys, but yeah, even without that you can figure this one out pretty easily. Definitely the easiest boss in the game. And look at that, we are already fighting this boss again. And phase 1 is pretty much the same as phase 2 before, and after taking down his health bar, he calls a friend. The main strategy here is to defeat the other monkey, I guess. The good news is that you are doing a lot more damage, so you're able to take these bosses down relatively quickly. And after a bit of trying, I was able to take them both down. And I was very confused when the trophy didn't pop. So I actually left this boss's dead body here and actually defeated the next mini-boss, I guess. That's when I realized, wait a minute, I should have gotten a trophy. I returned and yeah, you're supposed to stab it. Does that mean this trophy is missable? Because at some point a different enemy does spawn here. It was definitely worth it to come back because I got the trophy for killing this boss, and with that I also obtained the trophy for all ninjutsu. I was following a guide and I did know that I needed to kill this giant serpent by first getting there, which involved possessing one of these enemies. There is another giant serpent that you can find in a cave in the sunken valley that you can distract with an enemy in a similar way. Both of these serpents give you key items that are important for one of the game's endings. At this point I knew I had to get them, I just didn't know when I needed to use them.
Stray dog after all.
And here we are, another roadblock in our way. Owl is the next boss that we need to face, who is Sekiro's dad. It does give you the option to join him on his quest, which leads you to one of the endings, but we are going to leave that ending for later. And if you decide to oppose him, obviously he's going to attack you, which brings us to this boss fight. His attacks are really powerful. If you are caught off guard by one of his powerful swings, they can basically one-shot you. I'm sure if you collected enough Hairbeads that can be avoided, but the easiest way to deal with his powerful swings is to parry them. He does have a lot of attacks, which involves him jumping in the air. Most of the time you can dodge these attacks or lunge forward to get a few hits in when he lands down. Except in phase 2, where he changes up his shuriken attacks to throw poison. And that's the main difference, I guess, between the first and second phase. He also throws smoke bombs to throw you off guard, but once you figure out that you can just jump away when he does that, that isn't really a big deal. Another annoying thing that this boss does is he throws a new status effect that seals away your items. Again, once you realize when he does that, this can be also just dodged very easily. You jump away and you can even get a few hits in. Don't get me wrong, this fight is difficult and it takes time to learn his moveset, like any other boss in the game. But I don't think we need to repeat ourselves too much, because after learning this boss's moveset as well, he can be taken down, which gives us another trophy.
Shadow, you taught me well. That's my boy.
I know it's a bit late to talk about the game's presentation and the level design, but we are going to unlock the trophy very soon for exploring all of the areas in the game. What makes this game easier than Dark Souls and Demon Souls is that there are checkpoints scattered out pretty regularly. So you'll always have a checkpoint pretty near to a boss fight. And even without that, the levels are relatively short, and once you master a game, you even be able to pretty much just run through it in like an hour through. So it's not even that long once you master it, but it does take time to get to that point. And the graphics also hold up, I think, From Software still used the Dark Souls 3 engine for this game, but I'm not sure. I think the same engine was used for Elden Rings 2. But it's not like everyone is complaining about that, because all of these games are absolutely amazing, and the lore and the story that they all give us is also amazing. And as you see, we enter the Divine Realm. It is the last location we need to visit, and that unlocks our trophy. Remember that ghost monk that we fought after the Headless Ape? This boss is a stronger version of that. The first phase seems to be pretty much identical to that fight. The second phase you can just skip by jumping up on the trees and landing on him. And the third phase, he does use terror in this phase, which can instantly kill you, but you can avoid it once you know when he's going to hit you with it. He also uses thrust attacks that you can use the Mercury counter on, so he isn't really using any new mechanics, but he has a few old tricks that he kinda combines, but after fighting all, this boss isn't really a big deal. I'm not going to talk about this boss too much. It is a majestic fight, but it is also very easy to take him down. And after this fight you unlock the endgame. This is where I wanted to set up everything for the last two endings that I wanted, but I didn't know that after you kill this dragon you are locked out of those quest lines, one of which includes a secret boss fight against Owl, and the other is a quest line with another NPC. Anyway, with not my choice, I tried to make best with this situation, so I did some grinding for skill points and I obtained an ultimate ability. Next I went after all the ninja tools and I unlocked a trophy for that. I started upgrading them. Once I upgraded one of the ninja tools to the max, I got a trophy for that as well. I want to point out that there are some rare items, especially the lapis lazuli. You won't be able to obtain enough to upgrade all of your ninja tools to the max. I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to get enough lapis lazuli in 2 playthroughs, because the guide kinda claims that you can do that, but at this point I do need to do a second playthrough to unlock the other 2 endings anyway, so I will pick up the rest of the lapis lazuli on that playthrough. At least there was a questline I was able to complete, which involved killing this giant fish. After I did that and found its corpse, I unlocked a trophy. There wasn't really anything else I could do at this point, so I decided to fight the strongest boss of the game next. Well, at least we got a warm welcome. And this cleric beast inspired monstrosity is the strongest boss in the game. And I can't really say I have any good tips against this guy. Most of his physical attacks can get parried, and if you stay under him, you are fine for the most part, but he can catch you off guard with a lot of attacks that come out of nowhere. I know there is a method to lure him over the edge, but that requires a very difficult jump, so I didn't really bother with it, and it is actually more satisfying to learn his moveset and fight him the real way. The main strategy you want to use is to stay close. He has a lot of attacks that can catch you off guard that you saw, which is one of these lasting fire attacks that he can spam twice. So he shoots you once, you are down, he shoots you again, you're dead. The jumping attack, it looks scary at first, but you can jump away, and when he lands down you can grapple on him, hit him for a few times, and you are fine, you are under him. As long you're under him, you are pretty much in the clear to land as many hits as you can. In phase 2, he has another new moveset. It's like a fire attack that covers the ground. The easiest way I avoided this was to run diagonally. I jumped up and grappled onto him. You can also hit him a lot if you're close to him while he's doing this attack, but that requires a lot of luck. And he also likes to combine this with the charging attack. So he uses the charging attack, gains distance, and he uses this attack that covers the ground with fire. The other thing is once phase 3 starts. He starts it with an attack that covers you around with fire. So you can't really survive this for the most part. You kinda are trying to best to stay in the middle of the circle if you are trapped. If you somehow avoided it, yeah, you got lucky I guess, but he always uses this when he's close, so I never really had any chance to avoid it. And the good news is that when he is using this attack, he is focusing on physical attacks that are close range, so you can get a lot more hits in that will slowly build up his posture gauge. And I couldn't really build up the posture gauge here. I actually dropped this boss's health bar, and the good news is if you drop a boss's health bar, you can still kill it. And if they have less health, the posture gauge fills up faster too. I don't think this rambling made a whole lot of sense, but maybe it can help somebody. I know I should have collected the gourds before fighting the demon of hatred, but oh well, I was only missing one, and after bringing it to Emma, I unlocked a trophy for collecting all of these items.
Let's finish this.
Yanishu has kidnapped the Divine Heir, and he has returned with a mortal blade on his own. He isn't really strong at this point. You fought him a bunch of times before, so you will be able to take care of him pretty easily. Once you defeat him, you fight his granddad, I guess. And this guy is a completely different story. I like to call him Mr. Unpredictable. The first time and for a very long time I could not read his movements at all. And I think the gameplay reflects that very well. For the most part I was spamming the guard button to try to parry him, but he really likes to walk around menacingly and hit you when you least expect it. And he will find openings. This boss is designed in a way to catch you off guard, no matter what you're trying to do. It is technically a 4-phase boss fight if you count Genichiro, but again, you take down Genichiro pretty easily. In this final boss fight, at the beginning he uses the Mortal Blade. As I said, his moveset is extremely unpredictable, but mostly he is using attacks that can be parried. You can use the Meriki counter, and of course, if you time your jumps right, you can jump over some of his attacks. In phase 2, he starts using the spear. The same logic applies here too. He has a moveset that covers a wide area around him. You can try to parry it, but you will need a perfect parry or jump over him. The timing is a little bit finicky. I couldn't do it at the first time, but when I was fighting him again in New Game Plus, I definitely learned how to do this. And lastly, in phase 3, he starts to use lightning. I only pulled this off once during the fight that I managed to counter it. The main culprit here is that I was spamming the guard, not the attack button, when he hit me with this attack. It took a long time to learn this fight, and this is the second hardest fight in the game without a doubt. After I beat him, I got a trophy for beating this boss and unlocked the first ending the game that you get regardless what you do. As I said, it doesn't take too long to finish the game once you master it. And on this new playthrough I made sure to collect everything and finish all the quest lines that are required for the other two endings. One of the collectibles that I needed to get were the prayer beads, which pretty much requires to beat every mini-boss in the game. Some of them are hidden on the levels, but most of them are found after beating these bosses. I don't really know what I should talk about all at this point. He has a similar moveset. Yes, he is stronger and faster, but you fought him before, so you won't be able to tell when you can hit him. Biggest difference is in phase 2, when he starts teleporting and using some ranged fire attacks. He loses access to some moves that he had before. I'm pretty sure he no longer can poison you and steal away your items. So overall, this fight isn't too bad. For me it wasn't, but that isn't a big surprise after everything I did.
Defeated by my own son? It's not entirely unpleasant.
I don't know whose idea was it that the lapis lazuli had to drop from the most annoying enemy in the game, but at least now I don't have to fight these things ever again. 2 more are dropped from the Demon of Hate. I didn't fight him again. The rest of the lapis lazuli that you need can be purchased from the merchant in the Divine Realm. At least the rest that I needed. And with that I was able to upgrade all of my ninja tools, granting me another trophy. And with that, this is pretty much the last thing I need to do, is to unlock all the skill points. To get more skill points, it is recommended to play through the game more times. You are going to gain more points depending on which New Game Plus you are on, if that makes sense. I did most of the grinding on the first playthrough, which I absolutely don't recommend anyone to do. I only needed 5 skill points, so the rest I did it over here. What you see, it's not the most optimal strategy, but it's the best that worked for me. After unlocking the final skill point, I was, of course, very well rewarded. After a long and brutal fight against the final boss again, I backed up my save file. This is the easiest way to do this, so I am of course going to abuse it as well. You can use the same save file after you finished all of the quest lines. One of them is beating all, and another that is called the Forgotten Tears. Make sure to obtain both of these items before fighting the Divine Dragon. And I know there are technically 3 more trophies that I need to unlock to get the platinum, but all of them I will get by beating one more boss. And I'm sure you remember this part. You agree to join all on his quest, and first Emma starts fighting you. This fight is very fun, but not very difficult. Her moveset is a little bit weird, but it is very easy to get used to. And she also has only one phase, so you can take her down relatively quick. Then this other guy comes out. His first phase is pretty much the same from the normal final boss fight that you face at the end of the game, but he's somehow weaker, if that makes sense. I can't really put my finger on it, but maybe it's because I fought that boss a lot and that's why I didn't struggle against phase 1 that much. He has a grab attack, but you can jump over him, so that isn't a big deal. In phase 2 he starts to use fire, and yes, he did catch me off guard a lot of times with these attacks, but most of the time you can just jump away and avoid it. There is another attack that he covers the whole area with fire and launches at you. That one can be parried pretty easily. He doesn't seem to have a wide moveset, so he can be taken down relatively quickly. I did struggle against him for a while, but as any other boss in the game, he also has been beaten. And after that, all I needed to do is lay back and see the trophies pop, one of which was for defeating this boss, the next one was for defeating all of the bosses in the game, and the final trophy was for obtaining this ending of the game, which finally unlocked the Platinum Trophy for Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Now that was one crazy adventure for sure, and I do recommend, if you plan to platinum this game, to do it as well. Other than the grind to unlock all of the skills in the game, once you master it, this game isn't that bad to complete. And yeah, there is also a lot of missable stuff, but you can do it on a different playthrough, so that's not a huge deal. I'm going to focus my channel on beating JRPGs, so I'm going to suggest you watch Final Fantasy Rebirth next, or Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes. Stay tuned for the next episode of Virtual Platinum Pursuit. Subscribe, leave a comment and like, because that will help to grow this channel a lot. Hope to see you all soon. Bye!